So I've been shooting with the Fujifilm X-T3 for quite a while, and I really love it. It's a fantastic camera. But I've recently started this YouTube channel. I'm doing more videos, more vlogging, and although the video is amazing on the X-T3, there's a few quality of life features it's missing that I'd really like to have. First up, I'd really like a flippy screen. Currently, I'm using like this mirror thing that sits on top of the, here, I'll show you. Sits on top of the camera, one of these guys, and it reflects back the LCD to you, and you can kind of see how things look. And it does an okay job, but it's not great, and I'd really like the flippy screen. The next thing I'd love to have is IBIS. No one wants to watch your shaky vlog footage. I'm an old man, my hands shake, it's not pretty, so IBIS is pretty important to me right now. I would also really like the classic neg film simulation, which is apparently just never coming to the X-T3. Kaizen my ass, Fuji. I'd also like some of the other new JPEG improvements like the clarity slider, the improved grain, the color chrome blue, all that stuff. I love the Fujifilm simulations. It's one of the main things that I was at first attracted to the camera for, and they're just a lot of fun to play with. So yeah, I want that. I know what you're thinking. You want a flippy screen, you want IBIS, and you want all the JPEG stuff? Well, Fuji made that camera already. It's called the X-T4. Just stop making this video and go buy one. And that's exactly what I was going to do. But as it turns out, while Fujifilm wasn't busy putting classic neg into the X-T3 through like a super easy 5-minute firmware fix, Fuji, they were making a new camera. The X-S10 comes out next month, and guess what? It has a flippy screen. It has IBIS, and it has all the new JPEG stuff from the X-T4. It's also a lot cheaper. So this has made my decision a little bit trickier. Which to choose? Well, let's run through the specs of both cameras, compare them, and see which one's the best camera for me. So looking at my list of wants, the X-S10 has everything that I've said that I want for about $950 Canadian less. $950 plus tax is about $1,100 Canadian in price difference. That's $800 US, something like that. That's not an insignificant amount of money. The X-T4 is obviously the better spec of the two cameras. It's the flagship model of the Fujifilm lineup right now, whereas the X-S10 is a new mid-range model at a considerably lower price. So the question isn't which camera is better. That's pretty obvious. The question is which one is better for me for the work that I'm doing right now. If I choose the X-S10, what features will I be missing from the X-T4? And do those features really matter to me for the kind of work that I do? So let's start with video. The X-T4 is one of the best hybrid cameras you can buy right now, definitely punching way above its price point for its features. Let's see how the X-S10 does in comparison. The X-T4 shoots 4K, 60p, 420, 10-bit, internally at up to 400 megabits per second bit rate. The X-S10 will shoot 4K 30p at 420, 8-bit internally at up to 200 megabits per second bit rate. The X-T4 also offers all intra codecs as well as long GOP, whereas the X-S10 is long GOP only. Both cameras offer 422 10-bit video through HDMI to an external recorder. They also shoot F-Log, have 240 frames per second in HD, and 30-minute recording time limits. So the question is, do I need 4K 60p 10-bit video at 400 megabit per second bit rates? And the answer is no. I shoot YouTube videos and videos of my family. I would not use 10-bit even if available. I want small, easy to edit file sizes, and that extra quality is just not important to me. I'm not doing cinematic color grading or anything that requires that level of precision. And as for the 4K 60p, that's not a frame rate that I rely on. I shoot my regular videos in 24p, and for slow-mo, 60p is not really that slow. I'd much rather go to 120 frames per second or even 240. So as far as video goes, yes, the X-T4 is an unbelievable camera and the specs are fantastic. Do I need them? No. Will I use them? Probably not. So for me and my needs, the X-S10 is more than enough. For burst shooting, the X-T4 is capable of 15 frames per second with the mechanical shutter. The X-S10 will do 8 frames per second. They'll both do 20 frames per second with the electronic shutter, or 30 frames per second electronic shutter plus a crop. For me, the 8 frames per second of the X-S10 is more than enough. I don't shoot sports or fast action. I do like to use burst shooting a little bit when doing street photography, but I rarely go above 5 frames per second. I don't want all those images filling up my memory card. So again, for me, the X-S10 does the trick. So weather sealing. The X-T4 has it, the X-S10 doesn't. This is a feature that is nice to have for peace of mind. I do go out and shoot in light rain and snow, but rarely in a torrential downpour or a hurricane. I've owned a lot of cameras over the years. Some have had weather sealing, some haven't. Some lenses have, some haven't. I've shot in the rain often, in the snow often, and I've never had a problem. Maybe I was just lucky, who knows. Also, to get weather sealing on your camera, you need to use a weather sealed lens. All of Fuji's lenses are not weather sealed, and I often shoot with ones that aren't. Also, as soon as you plug a mic in the side, there goes your weather sealing. So no vlogging in a hurricane, I guess. So for me, weather sealing goes on the list of would be nice to have, but that I don't really need right now. Manual controls. This is a bit of a tough one. The X-T4 obviously has the classic Fuji look and design. It has the manual dials for your ISO, your shutter speed, exposure compensation. I really, really like that. I like the aesthetics of it. I think it looks cool. It's another thing that really attracted me to Fuji in the first place, that more of a film camera vibe. I think that I would miss that quite a bit. So the X-S10 is definitely lacking that. It's way more like a Sony style mirrorless camera with a PASM dial and then a couple of other wheels that you can program to do different things. Doesn't look quite as nice. Functionally, I think I could get used to it. It seems like the dials and the buttons are plentiful, they're well positioned, and with Fuji you can program those things to do whatever you want. I don't think it would take me long to feel at home on the camera once I had it set up in a way that worked for me. As for the looks of the X-S10, I can see some of the Fuji DNA in its design and appearance, and while it's not quite the looker that the X-T4 is, I think it's a lovely little machine in its own right. The X-T4 has dual memory cards that slide into the side. The X-S10 has one memory card and it goes up underneath where the battery is. While it is nice to have two memory cards, either for extra storage or for redundancy, it's no longer something I needed. If this was a camera I was using for professional work, shooting once-in-a-lifetime activities like a wedding or something, I would demand the two memory cards. You need that in-camera redundancy for your files. Do I need that redundancy? Not really. I talk shit to a camera and post it on YouTube. I take pictures of my family. The odds of me missing something truly irreplaceable due to a memory card failure are very, very tiny. So for me, the single card slot of the X-S10, while not my preference, is good enough. The X-T4 comes with the WS235 battery. It's good for about 500 shots or 85 minutes of 4K video. The X-S10 uses the older W126S battery. It's good for about 325 shots or 40 minutes of 4K video. While I would prefer to have a larger battery, I have a ton of the 126S batteries kicking around here from my previous Fujifilm cameras, so it's not that big a deal. I'm also not keen to start buying new batteries because they're not cheap and it adds up. Although, I guess I'd need half as many of them, so there's that. The IBIS system in the X-S10 is about 30% smaller than the system in the X-T4 due to the dimensions of the camera. But that only results in about half a stop less compensation than the X-T4's system. That gives the X-S10 about 6 stops of compensation versus the 6.5 in the X-T4. Half a stop of IBIS compensation is not going to sway me one way or the other, to be honest. Both the EVF and the rear LCD are higher quality on the X-T4 than the X-S10. The EVF on the X-T4 is a 3.68 million dot OLED screen at 0.75 times magnification. The X-S10 EVF is a 2.63 million dot OLED screen at 0.62 times magnification. The rear LCD of the X-T4 is a 1.62 million dot screen versus the 1.04 million dots of the X-S10. I have to admit this one stings a little. I'm very happy with the EVF in the X-T3, and the X-T4's is very similar. Going to a smaller, lower magnification EVF doesn't thrill me. Although the specs on the X-S10 aren't terrible, I'm sure that it would be good enough. So what have we learned? Well, the X-T4 is better. Yeah, no kidding, right? It's the flagship model. The X-S10 is a mid-range model. There's a significant price difference between the two. If I choose the X-S10, the features that I'll actually miss are the weather sealing, the manual control dials, the better EVF and rear LCD, the dual memory cards, and the better battery life. The X-T4 is an amazing camera, and it's worth every penny it costs and more. It's the obvious choice for professionals, or if you're someone whose work requires some of these key features. But are these differences worth $1,100 to me right now for the kind of work that I do? Before I answer that, let's see if the X-S10 actually has any advantages over the X-T4. I think it has a few. First up, it is smaller and lighter. It's only 142 grams, but those grams add up when you're carrying a camera around for hours on the street, or you're vlogging with it on a little Gorilla Pod or a gimbal or something. So smaller and lighter is definitely a plus for me and the kind of work that I do. The X-S10 also has that nice deep grip. Everyone who's previewed the camera on YouTube has called it out as being incredibly comfortable, and much more so than any other Fujifilm camera. I shoot one-handed a lot, and that's a very attractive feature to me. I also like that the camera has easily accessible auto modes. I often hand my camera to my wife or my daughter to take pictures, and it's always fiddly and annoying to change my setup to something that they can understand on the X-T3. So that's actually kind of a benefit. And the fact that your auto shots can now be recorded in RAW instead of just as JPEGs is also pretty cool. So for me, the price difference of the X-T4 isn't something I can justify for the work that I do right now. I've just started this YouTube channel, and I've got a lot of expenses competing for my dwindling dollars. So at this point in my life, $1,100 is actually a significant amount of money. You might feel differently. We all value features in different ways according to the work that we're doing, and there could be some deal breakers in the X-S10. And while saving $1,100 is currently important to me, it might not be to you. If that's the case, the X-T4 is definitely the superior camera and worth every penny. For me, the X-S10 is the perfect camera for what I'm doing right now, and I'll be picking one up on day one. Once I get my hands on the X-S10, I'll be making a ton of videos on it. I'll share my setups for photography, vlogging, and video. I also want to make some videos for users new to the Fujifilm system. I'm sure this camera is going to bring in a ton of new people to this system, and I want to help them get up and running as smoothly as possible and get the most out of their amazing new camera. So please like and subscribe if you're interested in the Fujifilm X-S10 or Fujifilm cameras in general and or street photography. I've got a lot of videos coming up that cover all of that. And let me know in the comments below how you feel about the X-S10. Is this a camera that excites you? Are you interested in it? Planning on buying one? Or are you going to hold it for something like the X-H2? Was this a good move for Fujifilm? Also, let me know what you'd like to see more of on this channel. I'm super new at this, and I want to make sure that I'm delivering content that you guys love. Thanks for watching. Now grab your camera and go out and shoot.